So tell me the last time that you felt just like so joyful.
So in 2020, I bought a van. It's a converted like van life van, and it was my way to deal with the pandemic. I just the idea of staying inside my bachelor suite apartment all summer just made me really sad. So I just bought a van and just cruised around. And I remember having this moment in San Jose Bay up in the north tip of the island, just like just feeling really free and unburdened, which was such a nice juxtaposition to how I was feeling in the city in my apartment, which was very constricted and sort of, stuck in a very small space, in a very small world. So yeah, just driving and just like having no real destination and just having everything I need in this little capsule of adventure and just kind of going where the wind took me. It was, yeah, such a wonderful feeling.
What was the hardest decision you've ever had to make, and do you have any regrets around that decision?
One that's coming to mind right now is fairly recent, the last couple of years, and I had to sort of foreclose upon my dream of home ownership. That was really hard. There was a lot of things wrapped up in that I didn't fully understand at the time. And when I officially was like, this probably is not going to happen for me in this lifetime, all of this stuff came up that I just wasn't really prepared for. Like I didn't really realize how much I was making that mean about me and my success as a person. And it was also this big goal. It was sort of the thing that I was looking towards for the future. Okay, save up, and then you can buy some small apartment somewhere, and yeah. And so when I let go of that, there was just sort of this vacuum of like, okay, well then what? What am I doing? You know? And so, do I have any regrets? No, absolutely not. So at the time, it was really hard and it was devastating. But now when I look at, all of the things that are coming my way because of that, because of letting that go, I see now that was not the right move for me. So maybe it would have secured some sort of more sturdy financial situation down the road, but it would also really have limited the things that I can do and the risks that I can take in the short term, which I think to me seems, that flexibility in my life is more important right now.
What has it allowed?
So grad school, I'm applying for grad school. I think also just the not being limited to one place and being able to go just pursue things that might be risky, right? Because when you own a home, you're stuck in that place for a while. So yeah, you really have to interrogate them as like, are these truly my desires, or is this something that I'm looking to tell me that I am okay and I am acceptable? That's some interesting work.
Have you ever been in love?
Yes, many times. And my relationship to love has really changed over the last few years. I've just broadened my horizons about what love really is. And I think I've discovered that there's so many different types of love. Like there's love for, another in a romantic context. There's love for your family. There's love for community. I think for men, there's like brotherhood is a type of love. Yeah, and then self-love. Like it's such a complex thing. And I think for so much of my life, I was really kind of pigeonholing it to this one small type of love. And yeah, I think with romantic love, there's a lot there. There's not only the act of loving someone. Like I do believe that choosing to love someone, it's a verb. Like it's a thing that you have to practice. And then there's also all the like chemical things that happen in your brain. There's like the the societal aspects of love and what that means about us and our future. And so, yeah, it's been a really interesting last few years, kind of pulling all of those different things apart and seeing where I can get love in other ways other than just romantic.
What are you holding on to that's holding you back?
I'm holding on to this idea that success is, looks a certain way, and that life is sort of precariously balanced, and that we need to be very careful and make very like calculated decisions, or something bad will happen. And I don't think life really works like that. I think that you can really rely, or one can rely on their resiliency, and one can rely on their intuition more than I have sort of allowed myself in the past. What I want for myself in the future is to feel emboldened to take more risks and make moves in directions that feel good, rather than trying to get to some, outcome of security or success or whatever. Because I think ultimately those things are A, not fully within our control, and B, kind of empty, So what, you're safe and you've got money? What does that really mean when measuring the success of a life?
What does success mean to you now?
I mean, there's some material component to it. Like I don't want to be stressed at the grocery store, like I don't want to have to be like running subtotals in my head to buy strawberries or something like that. So I want to have some money, but I want to be able to look back in my life and say, I did the things that I wanted to do and I helped people. Like, that's what's important to me. I really want to know that this life that I'm living was in service of something greater than myself, and in service of something greater than just acquiring things.
What words were said to you in your life, could be when you were younger, that have stuck with you that cut?
The thing that's coming to mind for me right now is that there's no money in being creative, or you can't be successful as a creative person. And I think that has really held me back in my life, because I think ultimately I am a creative person, and the way I approach my work is through creativity. And I think had I believed in my creativity more in younger years, I think I would have taken a different path in life. And that's not to say, we all end up where we end up, and I think that there's something really beautiful in that too. But I've always made very practical career and education decisions, and yeah, I've been successful in those things. But I think I have this sort of sense of mourning what could have been had I invested more into my creativity.
Were you ever bullied?
Yeah, definitely. I grew up in a small town, and I'm a gay man, so and I was out in high school. Like, I wasn't really, going around telling people, but I was not acting, like I wasn't hiding it. And so, definitely there was some bullying that came along with that. Well, yeah, I think it impacted my relationship with men, if I'm being honest. Like, I think I really didn't trust, and specifically straight men, for a long time because of that. Like, I think it really damaged my ability to relate or to connect with straight men, because I was always sort of on guard and untrusting of them. Yeah, I've done a lot of work in that area of my life, and I've been able to kind of move past it. But yeah.
What kind of work helped with that?
I mean, therapy, and I am in a men's group, so I've done a lot of work with with men specifically, and like intentionally kind of diving into some of this stuff. And it's really interesting to see how many men, even, like the attitude I was bringing into it, going into it, was, I'm different, I'm special, this group is not going to like I'm not going to be able to relate to people in this group. And then that was very quickly dissolved when I realized so many men are dealing with very similar issues, even though we're all very different. So yeah, that's been really helpful for me, and it's also helped me, make a lot of friends and new connections and build some community. So yeah.
Do you think that your providers, your parents, did a good job raising you?
Yeah, for sure. I think, first of all, I can't imagine being a parent. Like, my parents already had 2 kids, and that were like, 4 and 5 by, this point in their lives. And both my parents worked and worked really hard to, provide a good home for us and put us in school. Like, I went to a Montessori school, so my parents were fairly progressive in a lot of ways. And yeah, they tried really, really hard. And I don't think anybody gets it right? Like, I think it's really easy to look back and be like, oh, like, here's all the ways my parents, didn't like show up for me the way I wanted them to. But yeah, like, I think once you hit a certain age, you start to see like, oh, my parents are actually just people, that did their best and also were struggling with their own stuff, but somehow managed to raise kids. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for parents and anybody who's willing to bring a life into this world. I think that's really hard work. And yeah, so no, I think my parents did a good job.
Tell me about your first heartbreak.
My first heartbreak, I think I was 14. And so I think this is a fairly common story for a lot of gay men, but when we're young, we're sort of at that time where we're falling in love for the first time. Usually, I'm sure this is very different now, but when I grew up anyway, there just wasn't a lot of gay people, definitely not a lot of out gay people. And so I think, a lot of gay men fall in love with their best friend. That's their first sort of like exposure to love and heartbreak. And that's definitely my story. And yeah, it definitely was a unrequited love situation, I suppose. But also, who knows, like, there wasn't really like a open dialogue about that relationship. Yeah, and it has definitely, I think, shaped a lot of relationships since. I don't know. I think the most important thing about love, in like romantic love and breakups and heartbreak, is really just understanding your responsibility in it and how you showed up and what lessons you can take from it. Because all of my heartbreaks and relationship ends have been some of the most valuable learning experiences for me, even though it's so painful and it's so hard. The relationships really are a mirror for yourself. So there's often a lot of introspection, I think, that needs to happen when a relationship ends. Love is really the battleground or the arena in a lot of ways, right? And I think we, you can like sort of strengthen yourself and like learn all these tools and different ways to sort of approach relationship dynamics. And then when you're in the relationship and things are going bad, it's like all of that gets thrown out the window and you're, back to your 14-year-old self or whatever and repeating the same patterns. So I think there's like one of the most useful tools that I've picked up along the way is just really being able to be aware of that, first of all, you are not your thoughts. So having a thought is not the same as you don't need to identify with them. You can observe them. And also to just be really interrogate your desires and understand where they're coming from and understand if that's really, really, truly what you want in a relationship specifically. Yeah. One of the things that I have to do battle with in my mind is like, oh, if I don't show up perfectly, then this person will leave, or, I need, but really love is about seeing somebody as they are and seeing them fully, good and bad, and still choosing to love them and to, you know, show up in a healthy relationship space with that person. So